Welcome enlightened viewers to Science and Spirituality on Supreme Master Television. Today we continue to follow the footsteps of the story of our world's creation based on the Kabbalah account. Kabbalah in Hebrew means receiving. Kabbalah is a supernatural science and a spiritual method of getting in contact with God. Kabbalah is not a religion, but rather it is founded on spiritual experience. Attainment of God is achieved through an individual study of certain Kabbalah books such as the Book of Zohar. By way of scientific methods and through perceiving of the spiritual reality of upper worlds, Kabbalists can develop a sense of surrounding spiritual space, and this gives them wisdom to deal with our material world. Kabbalah says, if we wish truly to change anything in our world, including ourselves, we must first climb up to the spiritual level and do it from there. This is what Abraham, who is known to those of the Judeo-Christian and Islamic tradition as the biblical father of the nations, discovered almost 4,000 years ago. This is the essence of Kabbalah. Let's briefly recap the creation process as we discussed on last week's program. We had discussed the root of creation and the four phases of a creature's meaning and independent beings, development which differ by degree and kind of desires. This pattern of creation occurs again and again during the world's evolution on every level and is a fundamental part of its design. Every succeeding phase of creation has attributes of the previous phases, just as one who has reached adulthood may still act like a child on occasion. At the root of creation is the desire of the Creator who emanates light and who is the light to love and bestow. This is known as phase 0. However, to do so, light creates a vessel called a kli or an underdeveloped creature. The kli has an opposing nature, that is the desire to receive pleasure, and it is filled with the light. This is phase 1 or chokhmah. Once so filled, the creature senses the giver behind the light and naturally responds by bestowing the light back to the Creator in phase 2 or Bina. But the Creator's pleasure comes from giving. Therefore, in order to please Him, the vessel simulates its own action by combining two desires, the receiving and bestowing of light at the same time. This is phase 3 or Ser Anpin. Out of this mixed action, the creation gets some sense of the Creator's thought, and in phase 4 or Malchut becomes a creature that feels independent, but is not truly independent yet at this stage. Malchut is aware of its own pleasure in two forms. One from receiving light, and second from sharing the Creator's status. Malchut feels in bliss in the world of infinity or Ein Sof, where every desire is fulfilled and is spiritually very close to the Creator. Malchut is also now above its own root spiritual level. But soon the creature discovers that she is only the receiver of the Creator's light. She is ashamed of only receiving pleasure, which brings her unbearable anguish that she is not on the same level as him. Therefore, Malchut decides first to completely end the receiving of light with an act called Tzimutzum or restriction. She then acquires Masah, which means screen to control the reception of light. This turn of events is to be applauded, as the creature wants to correct its own desires in order to resemble the Creator. The creature's true nature is to receive, not to bestow. Hence, once the vessel is filled up, no more pleasure can be received. This is comparable to when we have satisfied a feeling of hunger. We no longer have an appetite for more food. Therefore, if the pleasure is felt not because we receive it for ourselves, but because we immediately bestow delight upon another being, then pleasure and desires can be infinite, because it all depends on how much we can receive. The more we can bestow upon another being, the more pleasure we can receive. The role of massa is to calculate how much inner light is to be received into the vessel. The remaining light, which is called the surrounding light, is rejected and forms a surrounding environment for the creature. The screen basically controls the ratio between egoistic and altruistic desires of the creature. As a result of the screen, Malchut's vessel is divided into two parts. The top, the white zone, constitutes the worlds which receive light, thus it can bestow pleasure upon others, called workable desires. The lower gray zone, where no light penetrates, constitutes creation, which is made purely of desires which cannot bestow pleasure on others, called unworkable desires. Workable desires feature the now familiar 0 to 4 phase structure, starting from the word Adam Kadmon, or the root phase at the top, followed by Atzilut, Beria, Yetzira, and the Asiya at the bottom. Similarly, the bottom part of the vessel constitutes unworkable desires and is divided into 5 levels. Starting from the top, we have still or unchanging level at the root level, followed by the vegetative, animate, speaking, and the spiritual level at the bottom. You might be surprised that spiritual desires are placed at the bottom of the vessel. Well, we'll clarify this later when we discuss more about the nature of the material world from the Kabbalah perspective. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Science and Spirituality. Today we are retracing how our world was created according to the ancient philosophy of Kabbalah. The actual root of everything that occurs in our physical world is called the common soul, or Adam Harishon, or Adam for short, meaning the first man. Adam was divided into 5 levels of desires that do not receive the light, named still, vegetative, animate, speaking, and spiritual. Adam is surrounded by the worlds of Asilut and others that do receive the light. Now, with the help of those worlds that are meant to be Adam's surrounding environment, Adam tries to change himself by trying to receive light as those worlds taught him to do. However, when Adam attempts to receive the light, the received pleasure is so overwhelming that due to the selfish desires, the screen, or Mesa, immediately shuts off the receiving of the light. But this second Tzimutzon, or restriction, is very different from the first one experienced by Malchut. This is because now Adam receives the light only for himself without consideration of the Creator's pleasure. This is considered a sin, which in Kabbalah terms means Adam has moved away from the Creator's purpose of creation. Thus, during the process of collecting the light, the egoistic intention expanded and each desire tried to receive the light selfishly upon themselves. Thus, the common soul shattered into 600,000 pieces, with each piece representing a different desire. As a result, the vessel also shatters and Adam's common soul descends through a system of worlds, through 125 states, enveloping in a greater egoism until Adam manifested on our physical plane of existence. As a result of this great fall, Kabbalah says we have left the spiritual worlds and become scattered into many residual selfish desires in which each piece of Adam's soul experiences separation and isolation from the other pieces. Thus, we do not know how to live in harmony with each other and our inanimate, vegetative and animate creatures. In this world, the Creator's light is concealed from us by our own self-centered nature, and we rely on the 5 physical senses, touch, taste, sight, smell and hearing, in order to satisfy our selfish needs. The shattering of Adam's common soul, although it appears catastrophic from our physical world perspective, was a necessary step to fulfill the purpose of creation. Human history has already shown how hard it is to address even a little piece of smaller desires. Thus, can you imagine how hard it is to correct Adam's large number of egoistic desires? In order to help Adam, the light and Creator are concealed from humankind. The Creator, by his concealment, gives Adam an opportunity to learn to bestow and love other creatures, and to experience the sensation of free will, which is actually an illusion. The historic evolution of the material world we are familiar with is actually very simple. Everything in our world evolves along the same 5 stages, beginning at the bottom and the smallest desires, the still or inanimate level, then the vegetative level, followed by the animate level, and the speaking or human level at the top with the strongest desires, and spirituality as the absolute peak of the pyramid. Our own human development also goes through phases 0 through 4. At its preliminary or 0 stage, humanity has to satisfy the basic physical desires for sustenance, shelter, reproduction and family, which are the same as animate desires. Then, the first stage is followed by the desire for wealth. The second stage is a desire for power and respect, which are social desires. The third stage is the craving for more and more knowledge. Hence, we have the development of advanced science. Today, as Kabbalists say, we are approaching the conclusion of this evolution stage, which has taken us thousands of years. They believe we are beginning to realize that it really did not yield much in terms of changing us. They say we are actually more lost and perplexed than at the beginning of the journey. Today, relatively few people are at this final stage, but their number is growing all the time. Eventually, every human being must come to the point where a craving for spirituality, which is a point initiated by the Malchut's envy, meaning the inherent need in every creature to resemble Creator and reach his status again. Kabbalah says, because the Creator is good, it means that the Creator created us with the intention of bringing us to the best possible state of being. This state is His own state. Kabbalists say we cannot completely change our egoistic intentions without awakening desire to know the upper spiritual force we call spirituality. Desire for spirituality isn't a separate level in its physical manifestation. Rather, it is a distinct level of development, a state where one's soul yearns to return to its root in the upper worlds, a place where the soul was once in a direct contact with the Creator. In Kabbalah, the actual act of correction is taken by the upper light. We cannot do it without the Creator's help. So, if we have desire for spirituality, but no means to develop it inside ourselves, meaning no special vessel, therefore no way to draw and expand the spiritual force upon ourselves, how can we do that? A prominent 20th century Kabbalist, Baal HaSelam, answered this question in the introduction to the Talmud Eser Sefirot. There is a wonderful, invaluable remedy to those who engage in the wisdom of Kabbalah. Although they do not understand what they are learning, through the yearning and the great desire to understand what they are learning, they awaken upon themselves the light that surrounds their souls. It is very important to remember that things evolve from up above and on downwards, from the spiritual to the corporeal. The reverse is not true. Also, there is not a single event in our world that occurs without the agreement of the upper worlds. The only difference is that events in the spiritual worlds reflect altruistic intentions, while in our world they reflect egoistic intentions. Kabbalists say they already live in the spiritual worlds while living in this world. Thank you, our spiritual viewers, for joining us on this journey through our world's creation from the Kabbalah perspective. Coming up next is Words of Wisdom after noteworthy news. May your days be graced with illumination from the upper light.